Welcome everyone to Biblio Files. We're answering a single question about books in about 5 minutes or less. My name's Christopher and I'm here from the Ann Arbor District Library, and I'm joined by my coworkers Lucy and Amanda. This episode, we're talking about one of our favorite or a really good graphic novel or comic that we've loved so much. Amanda, do you have a favorite you'd like to share with us?
I do. So I don't read a lot of graphic novels or comics, I'll admit that first thing. But when this question was posed, the first book that came to mind was Blankets by Craig Thompson. It's an older book, it's from 2003. And why I thought it was important for me to talk about or just to bring back into my mind was this was the first sort of adult or newer form of how graphic novels are done now that I had read when I first started working at the library. It comes in hefty at 600 pages, so it's definitely different than some of the comics I was reading as a child. So this book, I think it's his Craig Thompson's second novel, and it's a bit of a memoir loosely based on his own life. It tells the story of a young man growing up in rural Wisconsin in a fairly religious household. It goes through his life, first loves, first loss. It's rooted in nostalgia and sort of coming of age, and I'm really drawn to those themes in books of all kinds. So for me, that's what was drawn to it. Also, the title Blankets was a really cool nod. So blankets are comforting, and there's different ways that blankets or things that allude to blankets are incorporated throughout the story that I thought was really well done. So it's an acclaimed graphic novel. A lot of people have read it, and for me, this was sort of like I'd asked one of my coworkers who was super into graphic novels. And I was like, oh, I don't really read a lot of graphic novels and comics. It's just, they're not for me, and I don't know. And then they were like, have you read Blankets? So for me, that was a good starter or an intro to let me know that graphic novels can be more than just like a Garfield comic. So that's my book for this week, Blankets. Lucy, what do you got?
So I struggled mightily with this category just because I couldn't choose one. I mean, I ultimately did choose one, but I love reading graphic novels, and I was thinking a lot about it this past week. Like, why is this so hard? And I think that I find them to be so immersive. That's the thing about reading graphic novels in general for me, that you have this great story and these pictures, and so you're just in the world. And so my favorites, I think I feel so strongly about them that I have next to me right here like a stack of 10 that could have been the ones I talked about. But I chose instead to talk about this book that I just finished recently called Strange Fruit. And it is by Joel Christian Gill, and it's the uncelebrated narratives from Black history. So this is a really interesting book. The author was born in the South, lived his whole life in the South, moved to Boston for grad school to do art, and was surprised to learn about the racism that existed in like a place like Boston and New England, and sort of led him on his artistic journey, which made him realize that he was in a different place than like his grandfather and his father. And so Strange Fruit comes from a Billie Holiday song. It's about people hanging in trees, but he wanted to focus on people who had cut the rope, so to speak, is what he says. So this is a book full of narratives about people in Black history that you might not have heard of. Like there's a chess champion, there is a ventriloquist, there's a bike racer, and a lot of them are among the firsts in these things. These are really interesting stories. They're so well illustrated. They're funny, but they're also sad at the same time. Sometimes he has these little bits of like the side commentaries in his pictures that are really, really interesting. For instance, there's one where this bike racer can't seem to get away from Jim Crow laws, but that's always depicted as like these black crows. So I just think it's a really cool and different book, but it's also a really important book and to include in like sort of any sort of Black Lives Matter discussion series or anything like that. It's new, and I hadn't read anything like this before, and I learned so much from it. So that was the one that I picked. That's Strange Fruit by Joel Christian Gill.
Lucy, do you think you could show us a page just to see what the graphic style is like?
Sure, I will show you. Yeah, I mean, he starts, like, here's a page from the
cool.
chess champion, but the pages are really full, and I mean, there's things up and down the sides. You're getting the general narrative, but there's a lot to look at. And he also does this funny thing where he does this, like, he'll take a word and then he'll put that word in the next cell and be like definition, and defines the word, but defines it in his own terms. So it's just really rich, and I highly recommend it.
That's really cool. That's a really great example of what fun that the author can have with a graphic novel, because you're not just telling it in words, it's a story told in words and pictures, and you can really play with the layout. That's why I was curious to see how this author did it. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Christopher, what did you choose?
Well, like you, I also had a whole stack of possible graphic novels that I wanted to highlight. Some of them are really, really funny and bizarre. Other ones just tell these great stories. The one that has stuck with me for many, many years is kind of a sad one. You can imagine what happens in it. It's called Don't Go Where I Can't Follow by Anders Nilsson. And it's about Anders Nilsson and his fiancée, who is Cheryl Weaver. And the story is told so interestingly through reproduced letters and drawings and a comic and photos. And I think in that way, it really captures their relationship in such a very real way. Ultimately, Cheryl gets sick and dies. I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying that, but it is very unique because it's not a straightforward telling necessarily chronologically. There are such sometimes odd pieces of their life that are reproduced in the book. And in that way, I felt like it was much more realistic than a very straightforwardly told memoir of the two of them. Well, in any case, those are some great picks of graphic novels and comics. Next week, we'll be talking about our favorite picture books. So I hope you join us for that. And if you want to tell us what some of your favorites are, you can go to the AADL website. There's a link below, and let us know. We'd be happy to hear from you. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.